Welcome to the Week 4 high school football recap. I'm Perry Mattern alongside Jake Adams of the Sentinel, and let's get to our quick snaps, all the games that happened this week. And let's start off with Redland at Hershey. And Jake, the Patriots, now 4-0.
Yep.
They win their first Keystone game very impressively, 41-9 over Hershey.
Yeah, and a bit of an unsung hero there. Justin Johnson had himself a breakout game, backup running back there. 18 rushes, 157 yards, 2 TDs, so nice game from him.
And Phil Overton has really been carrying the load there, so good to see for the Patriots to
Yep.
have another weapon like that. Cedar Cliff had zero problems with Waynesboro, 60-20. Jaden Demi was the big man in this game for the Colts.
Yep, and we got it confirmed from their team statistician over the weekend. He now has the Cedar Cliff record for rushing touchdowns. Grant Brenneman also 78% completion percentage, so good day from him.
They're going to have a big test this Friday as they take on Lower Dauphin. And State College in Carlisle. Carlisle coming back to earth a bit. The offense never really got into motion up at State College, losing 37-8.
Yeah, and they had 112 total yards of offense, so that's kind of a bummer there for this highly touted spread option that they had going. Only 19 of those yards rushing too.
They're going to have to try to get things back going in the correct direction as they continue their Commonwealth schedule. Big Spring taking on Greencastle, and Greencastle has been quite a nice surprise for Blue Devil fans. They beat Big Spring 29-7, and Big Spring, this was kind of the same story as we just talked about with Carlisle. The offense just wasn't there.
Yeah, and going from 2-0 start to now 2-2 on the season, they get just 67 total yards of offense, and Garrett Chestnut, their quarterback, led the way with the most yards period. He's 16 rushes for 8 yards.
You're not going to win a lot of games when you do it that way. McDevitt and Mechanicsburg. McDevitt wins 35-22. Mechanicsburg, again, they do not have problems scoring.
No.
It's just a matter of trying to being able to stop the opponent.
Yeah, and this was going to be a tough one anyway. McDevitt's coming off, a 6-point outing against CV, so they were looking to beat someone up, and they did. But Tyler Schubert, Mechanicsburg quarterback, had a nice day, 23 of 45, a TD, 289 yards passing, so at least they got some production.
If they can slow down the opponent, maybe they could get a couple of wins here, but now, surprisingly, they are already 1-3.
Yep.
And Boiling Springs and Middletown, this was a bit of a surprise. The Bubblers go on the road and get a big win, 28-12.
Yeah, and they're still riding off of that win against Big Spring last week. Middletown held to just 275 total yards of offense, did lose both fumbles that they committed. That really helped the Bubblers there.
Bubblers forced a lot of turnovers this year.
Yeah.
In Susquehanna, Pine Grove wins 21-18. The Blackhawks, this was their best chance thus far this year to get a W.
Yeah, and the difference has got to be their extra points there. No extra points, no 2-point conversions converted whatsoever, and that's the 3-point difference right there. Good news for them. Michael Newmeyer had 64 yards rushing, 86 yards receiving, 2 TDs. So at least they got something offensively for the first time all season.
Northern and James Buchanan, the Polar Bears win 21-7 after being shut out a week before by Mechanicsburg. The Polar Bears, this was a very good outing for them on the road.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see what they would do against JB, and they got a nice game out of Robert Shelley there, 130-plus yards rushing the ball.
Curtis Robinson as well with a good game, and we'll talk about him in just a bit. Camp Hill at West Perry, this one was all Lions on Saturday night as they played in Mechanicsburg, beating West Perry 51-20. And this offense has just not slowed down.
No, and West Perry was kind of up against the wall there. They've given up a ton of yards and points all season too, so it's kind of the perfect storm for Camp Hill again. Bill Williams, 4 TDs rushing. Nice thing from the Lions getting to play some backups again. Quinn Buffington, their backup quarterback, with a nice 52-yard touchdown pass.
And now the Lions 4-0. Coming into last week, they were ranked number 10 in the state in Class A. The 3 highlight games of the week. Let's start in Palmyra, or not in Palmyra, but in Trinity. It was Palmyra and Trinity, and the Shamrocks holding on for a 34-27 win. And it looked again that the Shamrocks might blow a big lead, but they hold on. So this had to be encouraging that they were able to keep this lead late.
Yeah, 28-7 halftime lead. Almost lost it again. The difference being first half they had 3 rushing touchdowns, or 2 rushing touchdowns and a passing TD. Built up that big lead. Palmyra scored once, and that was it. Second half though, Palmyra touchdown. Hunter Kruger field goal for Trinity, another Palmyra touchdown, a third Palmyra touchdown, and a Kruger field goal once more, which barely put them over the top there. John Miller had a nice game for the Shamrocks, 16 carries, 168 yards, 2 TDs, but most of that came on a 97-yard run up the middle there that kind of broke things open. Otherwise, a kind of pedestrian day for him there. Nice thing to see Hunter Kruger making 2 field goals. First time we've had a kicker make 2 in a game for us this season. And Zach Slonak, again, their big wide receiver, 3 catches, 110 yards, including a big 87-yarder.
It seems like every time he puts his hands on the ball, it goes a long
Yeah.
way. And as you mentioned, the 2 field goals, Bill Ragnan, the head coach there for the Shamrocks, mentioned that in our game story,
Yep.
that it's really nice to have a kicker that can knock them down.
Yep.
In Shippensburg, East Penn wins 28-0 in the Colonial Opener. Shippensburg, the defending champs, never really got anything going on offense, and Brighton Fegley was Brighton Fegley.
Yeah, I mean, you got a chance to finally see that, so I'll let you talk a little bit about that in a minute, but he finished with 193 yards rushing the ball. Chiron Dennis had 97 on 9 carries, so they got a nice 1-2 punch there. They didn't really need to rely on Fegley as much as they needed, because Shippensburg, again, is just they haven't been able to keep their defense off the field all year. 2 interceptions for Tyler Gustafson, their quarterback there. 6 of 19 passing, usually his worst performance of the season, it looks like.
Shippensburg, they looked, he has 19 pass attempts, but they looked afraid to throw the ball. I mean,
Yeah.
They wanted to try to keep it on the ground, and it worked early, a 13-play drive to start the game, but it eventually ended up in a punt. And East Penn just kind of wore down the Greyhounds, and Shippensburg's going to have to find a way to create some balance on offense, or they're going to become extremely predictable.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that defense can't get off the field. It's tough when the offense is continually going 3 and out. That is a pretty good defense. You saw it earlier this year when they shut out Chambersburg. They can play. It's just when the offense is not on the field very much, eventually that squad's going to wear down.
Yeah, and that's, it's never a good recipe. We see that all the time. And when your defense is playing 3/4 of the game, they get tired.
East Penn and Greencastle this Friday should be an outstanding game there as well. And then at Cumberland Valley, the Eagles beat Harrisburg 28-7, and you got to see the fact that score doesn't really indicate how close this game was.
Yeah, actually, Harrisburg outplayed CV for that entire first half, basically. CV put up a score in about 1:30, and it looked like, okay, yes, this offense is finally starting to click a little bit. But Harrisburg outgained them, I think it was 230 yards to 105 or something like that. I mean, absolutely running up and down the field, but it was costly penalties that hurt Harrisburg. Their coach said afterwards that their mics weren't working right as the game started, which hurt them trying to get plays going and trying to adjust to the CV offense right away. CV got the momentum changed on a fumble at the goal line when Harrisburg's starting quarterback Mikhail Clark had to sit out for a play because his helmet got ripped off after a whistle, which their coach wasn't too pleased about, obviously. So their backup comes in, botched handoff there, and it was a gifted fumble for CV, who then drove 88 yards for what turned out to be the go-ahead touchdown and what ended up being almost a rout.
You have to give the Eagles credit for taking advantage of their opportunities there, but certainly part of that was a little gift wrap. And I'm not sure Michael Whitehead would admit that, the coach of the Eagles, but it is what it is, and Harrisburg didn't play up to their standards on that Friday
and
night.
it ended up helping you out too, especially with our little pick'ems that we had there going perfect. This kid sweeps the board here, and he's all sorts of giddy on Saturday morning with that, and all we had to do was wait for Camp Hill to do their thing, and that was
right. Well, we both had Camp Hill, but 11-0, and so you were 7-4.
Yes.
And so I got to give a shout out to the Polar Bears of Northern, Boiling Springs, and I can't remember
CV. You also
Cumberland Valley, and then State College as well. But for all the gloating that I've done, it'll probably go the other way this week. Our 3 Sentinel Stars, 3 standout performers, and we already mentioned them. But that stat line is worth repeating again. Jaden Demi, unbelievable.
Yeah, 23 carries, 243 yards. Actually didn't have an impact in the receiving game, but they didn't need it at all. 6 TDs, like we said, scored 2 in each of the first 3 quarters before I'm assuming he sat out in the 4th.
Boiling Springs won 14-7 over Big Spring 2 weeks ago, and John Vaughn was not really a big part of that, but they go on the road to Middletown, and he was a huge part of that game.
Now 2 200-yard games for him, 30 carries and 200 on the nose, 4 TDs for them. basically the entire offense for the Bubblers on Friday night.
Northern with the 14-point win. We mentioned Robert Shelley, a good game, but Curtis Robinson really putting this a full game together as the quarterback. 11 carries, 87 yards, and then also throwing for 100 in the air.
Yeah, so we haven't had a chance to see him either one of us yet, but it was a nice stat line to see come across Friday night. 7 for 14 passing, 100 yards, 87 yards rushing, and he did have a rushing TD as well.
There's your 3 Sentinel Stars, Jaden Demi, John Vaughn, and Curtis Robinson. Congratulations to those guys, and that does it for our Sentinel recap this week. And then on Friday, we will have our football tab out and our preview video as well. For Jake Adams, I'm Perry Mattern. We'll see you next time.